You're on 666 ABC Canberra. It's 23 minutes past 2. We're talking about organisation and getting stuff organised on Big Ideas Monday here on Afternoons. Now, what happens when you open your kitchen cupboards? Does stuff fall out? Can you do an excavation to the back that uncovers vanilla essence, last opened in the 20th century? We certainly know that Vegemite lasts forever, apparently. Yogurt emphatically does not. So let's have a chat now about getting your food organised and, crucially, not wasting it. Johndee founded Planet Ark and Do Something. He's well known for his environmental campaigns, and his latest cause is organising food. And he's with me now. John, hello.
Good afternoon to you.
Now, why food? What's the root environmental cause for you in all this?
Well, the two factors, really. One is social, one is environmental. On a social front, Australians are spending about $7.8 billion a year on food that we buy but don't eat. We actually throw that away. And that's at a time when many Australians are going hungry and relying more and more on food charities like OzHarvest and Second Bite. And secondly, in terms of waste, we're throwing away about 4 million tonnes of food every single year in Australia. So, most of which is perfectly usable, perfectly edible, and can be reused. So it's amazing at a time when we are whinging about the cost of petrol and worrying about the cost of electricity that we can literally throw away nearly $8 billion worth of food and not blink an eyelid.
Well, let's get straight to the practicalities then. How do you begin to organise your food? What are the key principles?
Well, look, the key thing to start with is try and plan what you're going to cook for the week ahead and what you need to shop. And the first thing you should do, it sounds dreadfully old-fashioned, but it does work, is to write up a shopping list that uses up the existing food in your pantry, fridge and freezer. It's amazing how often, you'll go to a food market or a farmer's market, you'll get yourself a nice treat and spend quite a bit of money on something special. You put it in your fridge and then you forget about it, and so it's always good to have a good look through your pantry, fridge and freezer to see what you've got, and then use the internet, to get recipes. And our website, foodwise.com.au, enables you to type in the food that you've got, and it will give you recipes that can use up that food. And then basically on your shopping list, you should only write the stuff that you need to finish off those recipes. And when you go shopping, don't shop when you're hungry. It's a guaranteed recipe for buying more than you need. And avoid 2-for-1 offers unless you've got a really good-sized freezer that you can put one of them in your freezer. And, of course, when you get home, make sure you store your food properly. That's really, really important.
So it's not necessarily all about having lots of tins or buying in bulk, which are often the solutions to sort of buying effectively that are given to us.
Oh, absolutely. It's about shopping, in a wiser way and making sure that you only get what you actually need. It's just as important to maybe try and go shop a bit more regularly and get food when it's fresher. The other key thing, of course, is when you've actually cooked your food, it's amazing how we don't use up our leftovers. Now, my grandmother, bless her, when she used to cook food, she would recycle it, and she could recycle food 3 or 4 times, and you'd forget what the original meal was. She was that good at it. And,
I have to tell you, Johndee, that Peter Fitzsimons, the football writer, once told me that his mother was an expert food recycler, but he said his father finally gave up when she tried to recycle lettuce by boiling it. He said his very loving father looked up and said, "Helen, I'm sorry, I've reached my limit."
But what's interesting is that a simple tip here that you should try is that, often when we cook a meal, and then the kids especially always leave a little bit there, and there's not really enough there to warrant the time and effort to make a new meal. But here's a sensible way forward. If you are cooking a really nice meal, why not cook extra portions of that food? And therefore, when you've finished, and if the kids have left some food over or you've left some food over, add it to the remaining portions that you've cooked, and then put that in your freezer. And that way, if you've had a busy day at work, or if you're retired and you just want to have some spare food left in the freezer, you've got a meal already there, and all you have to do is put it in the microwave and heat it up. But that way, you can take full advantage of the leftovers without having them to turn them into a brand new meal.
I guess, John, it all goes to we are surrounded by glossy cookbooks these days. We're surrounded by celebrity chefs, and we've got this image of cooking and food preparing as something that you do where you open a recipe book and you say, well, tonight I'm going to have salt and pepper squid with a rocket salad, and I'm going to go down to the shops and buy every single ingredient. And what you're suggesting, I'm a vegetable grower, and I've often thought about how different the dynamic is when you go out to the vegetable garden and say, okay, that's what's growing in the garden. You're making the same suggestion, aren't you? The starting point is what you've already got rather than what you get out of the fancy cookbook.
Yeah, look, absolutely, because often we'll see a program on TV and think, oh, I'm going to make that tomorrow night. And maybe the thing to think about is, why not, have some kind of system in your home, either on your computer, your iPad, or in a recipe book that says, well, I'll make that next week or the week after. So make a note of it and then plan it in, because it's amazing if you plan your food better in terms of, shopping, storing, and using up what you already have. Every household listening now can save hundreds of dollars every single year, because that's how much, on average, we're wasting by throwing out perfectly good food.
Okay, so there's a real money-saving issue in all this as well.
Well, it is money-saving, and the real environmental benefit, of course, as well, is not just the food that you're throwing away in the actual bin itself. What you've got to think about is we often buy food out of season, so a lot of food is now flown into Australia, and we forget that when we're throwing away food, we're also throwing away all the resources, the energy, the water that went into getting that food all the way from the paddock to your plate. And we forget about all that hard work and effort and resources the farmers have to put into it, that the trawlers, and their crews have to put into it. And this is something that is really, really important, because when you throw away all those resources, you're having a very big impact on the environment. And that I think is extremely important. And of course, when food rots in landfill, the greenhouse gas methane that comes off that is 25 times more potent than the carbon pollution coming out of your car exhaust. So there's a really major issue there. And if you are interested in knowing more about how to save money and how to reduce those environmental impacts, what Do Something have done is we've come up with a website called foodwise.com.au. And if anyone has a really good leftovers recipe they want to share with us that we can share with everyone else, then do get on the website and give that to us, and we'll share it with everyone else.
Oh, you're the Jamie Oliver of leftovers. Johndee, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, bye-bye.